I used to think the farmer's carry for HYROX didn't matter. Basically just pick up the kettlebells, do the distance, and be on your way. It felt more like rest to me than anything else, so I never put a focus on it. But when I look back at some of my worst races, the farmer's carry is always where it fell apart. So I spent a lot of time thinking about how to approach this and how to turn this into a strength rather than something that is just managed. My name is Rich Ryan. I am a 3-time HYROX Elite 15 Worlds qualifier with a PR of 54.28 and a doubles PR of 48.29. In this video, I'm going to show you some ways that you can change your positions to make you better at farmer's carry and some ways that you can train so that you can turn this into an advantage later in the race. So the first place and the easiest way to improve your farmer's carry is to improve the positions and how you move during the actual station. So what I want to do is talk about the cues that we use so that we can kind of reframe things and think a little bit differently for how we're going to move through this station. Oftentimes a cue that we will hear with something like this is to brace your core. And yes, this is a core exercise as we do need to be strong through our midsection so that weight isn't moving us and we have complete control over the actual station. But when we think about what we're actually doing when we're bracing our core, this can be counter to helping our movement quality so we move quickly during the farmer's carry. So the farmer's carry is a walk. It could be called the farmer's walk. So we want to be able to walk with our body's natural mechanics, which includes rotation and hip extension. If we get really tight through our core, this is going to limit the amount that we rotate. Our obliques are actually here to be anti-rotational. So as we walk and we are tight through our core, this is going to limit how much movement we can go through our shoulders, much like when we're running or walking. So keeping a loose core is probably an advantage when it comes to the mechanics of the farmer's walk. Another thing that a tight core can actually limit is your breathing ability. When we talk about the front of our abs, our rectus abdominis, this is going to pull our ribcage down closer to our pelvis. When we are breathing, and during the farmer's carry, the breathing is probably the most important part, our ribs need to move away from our pelvis to open up space for our diaphragm. So if we're closed down tight here, it's going to make it harder to breathe and harder to expand. So a tight core is actually going to limit your rotation and make it harder to breathe. So we want to make sure that our core, although stable, is not tight. The second piece that you should consider when talking about the form for farmer's carry is the positions that you're going to be in while you are holding the kettlebells. It seems intuitive, and too often athletes are pulling the kettlebells up, moving themselves forward, and their shoulders are going forward first. This is putting the kettlebells out in front of their body. And this actually feels pretty good because this allows you to kind of chase the kettlebells forward, and you're using the momentum and gravity to go forward with the heavier weights. However, this position is just going to be way too stressful when it comes to our upper back, and again, the breathing mechanics will be shut down. With that weight out in front of us, it's going to pull our ribs down, limiting the amount of space that we have to expand and breathe. And oftentimes coming out of farmers, if you experience something like a side stitch, that's why. Your diaphragm is working really hard and is pushing against your ribs because your ribs aren't moving because they're forced down with the weight. So we want to make sure that we are pushing our chest forward and really setting that weight back behind us. So from here, once we're in the position where our chest is forward, we then want to lean forward with our chest, still using the weight that we have, but keeping it tucked behind. So I like to push our chest forward and pulling your shoulder blades back. This is going to make it much easier to breathe and move well. And then when you set those kettlebells down, you're going to be off to the races. The kettlebells in isolation are a great exercise for your traps. It's really going to engage. You can really kind of hold everything from here. A lot of times you see people in the gym add straps to their farmer's carry because they're not worried about their grip training. It's all about their trap training. But in HYROX, tensing up in through your traps is going to be a disadvantage long term because it's going to create a little bit more tension and it's going to make you a lot more stiff in your movement, and it's going to restrict blood flow because you are doing basically an isometric hold in your upper back, which is going to make the lunges a little more uncomfortable in that position, and wall balls. This is going to build a lot more fatigue in your shoulders and your traps if you are shrugged up this entire time. So a cue that you can use here is to depress your shoulders. You want to pull your shoulders away from your ears. We want to make this as much of a grip exercise as we can because we aren't using our hands basically at all throughout the rest of this race. So we want to be able to really kind of hang on to those kettlebells and just kind of let them dangle at our sides rather than to be tight through our shoulders and our traps. This is just going to save energy in the long run. And with all three of the cues that I just mentioned, if we are able to move well, move faster, we're going to be holding on to the kettlebells for less time, which ultimately is going to be beneficial for the race itself. A cue that I love for gripping the farmer's carry is to turn your pinky up and on. So this is going to allow your full grip to be engaged, and it's more likely that you will then then turn on your lats. Your lats are going to be what you want to rely on the most when it comes to the big musculature in your body. It's the biggest muscle in your back, and it's not going to inhibit your rotation really at all. So when you turn your pinkies, you're going to use your full grip, and you're going to be more engaged through your lats. So pick up those kettlebells, turn your pinky tight into the kettlebell handle, and then get moving. So ultimately, your grip is going to be the limiter when we're talking about the farmer's carry if you do all of the sequencing above. And this could be a big limiter for a lot of us. So training your grip is very important when it comes to the farmer's carry. So you can hit this in a bunch of different ways, and I would recommend that you hit them in all the ways. I think that doing as much work for your forearms as possible is beneficial. So we use our forearms a lot. We use our fingers and our hands all day. So it takes a lot of work to get a good response out of our forearms, much like our calves. So I recommend doing as much work as you possibly can until like your elbows really start to feel the wear and tear. That's where we can see some of the overuse injuries, like a tennis elbow. So monitoring how much your elbows are hurting or what kind of discomfort they're in should really be your gauge for how much grip work you're doing. Another thing you want to focus on is working the extenders. Oftentimes we're just doing grip work, we're working our forearms, but we're not working the back of our arms at all. And this is just an important way to have full strength and balance when it comes to your farmer's carry. So I would hit this in a bunch of different ways. I would do things like dead hangs, wrist curls, reverse curls. Doing things like non-hook grip barbell work is a great way to build power and strength into your grip, which will ultimately help reduce the amount of fatigue that you will feel during the farmer's carry. And then of course, I would train this under fatigue. I would do this during your HYROX work. It doesn't need to be a big pillar in your HYROX training session because we're going to be limited for how much we can do because the grip will eventually blow up and we can't do a ton of volume, but it is going to be helpful to understand how it feels and how to get into those positions that are going to be an advantage under fatigue. So picking things up and being able to work under fatigue is very helpful. So I would put this into HYROX workouts fairly often and kind of stick it toward the back where it would be toward the race. And I would also do this in my regular strength sessions where I'm doing sets and reps of things that would be like heavier. I love to use farmer's handles as a big tool for this, or going heavier with the kettlebell or dumbbell is a great way to, again, to build that power and strength in your grip, because it's not just about grip endurance. And it's hard to do a lot of grip endurance work. So we want to make sure that we are focusing a lot on the power and our crush grip strength so that we can make it feel easier, feel lighter when we pick up those kettlebells, and therefore using less energy. So I would hit it with a bunch of different angles. I would do it light, I would do it fast, I would do it heavy, I would do it slow. I would do all of the things when it comes to actually carrying the weight of the farmer's handles. So if you want all your training taken care of for you, including all your farmer's carry training, check out the RMR Training app. We have nearly a dozen different programs in the app that are for our community members, plus a robust community of like-minded athletes who will all have similar goals and are pushing toward their next HYROX event. You can take a look at that link down in the description, and I'll talk to you soon.